Your first composition will be the blues, and we're going to do this in a couple steps. The first step is just putting into place your newfound knowledge of the blues scale. And so as you would have watched the tutorial on rules and rule keeping in terms of composing and how that's good for us because it gets us thinking along the right track, we're going to have a few sets of rules for this composition. So they're here at the top. I have this preparation sheet, and there's going to be one in a lesson for you to do as well for your composition, but I'm going to do one as if this is a practice composition. Okay, so your rules are that your composition will be 12 measures long. That'll come into play or be more important the next time you compose this in this style, because the blues uses the number 12 quite often. You will be composing using a piano as your instrument. So you'll have a bass clef and a treble clef. All right, so I'm just checking these off as I read them. The bass clef will contain chords. You can use any combination of the 1, 4, and the 5 chords. All right. The treble clef will be your melody, and you will use notes of the blues scale. The chords must be whole notes or half notes, but only 1 chord per bar. You must begin with the 1 chord and end with the 1 chord. You must label your chords, and I'll show you how to do that in this tutorial. And then you choose the key signature you wish. Now, I'm going to put a star on this one because for this practice one, I'm going to use a key of C major, but you are not allowed to use that key. So you have to use any other key, but not C. All right, so this is a practice. Follow along as I figure this out, because if I do all of this prep work at the bottom here, it gets me ready to actually input this into flat after. Okay, so we said our practice key is going to be C major, so I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget that I use C. We're going to start with the major scale because that helps us get our blues scale after. So the major scale of C is, well, it starts on C, ends on C, fill all the letters in between. Then you need to add your key signature, which we know C major has no sharps and no flats. All right, good. So that's our major scale. I'm going to just number the notes because that helps us with the blues. The blues scale, we said already in the lessons, is that the pattern is that we have a 1 note, we have a lowered 3rd, 4, lowered 5th, raised 5th from that lower, and then lowered 7 and 8. Okay, so we know I can scratch out the 2 and the 6 note because I don't need them. Then I lower these notes here. So I have a C because I have the 1. I have a lowered 3rd, so we need an E, but it has to be lowered. Well, in C major, it has no sharp or flat on it, and when you lower a note that is called natural, we lower it to a flat. The 4 note is the F. The 5 note, we need 2 of these, Gs. The first one has to be lowered. It's a G natural in C, so then when you lower a natural note, it becomes flat. Now, we have to raise that C back up to where it was. Well, just before this, I actually just lowered it there. So now we're going to raise it back up. As Josh Groban says, we're going to raise it up to a G natural. Great. And the B has to be lowered as well. So it was B natural. We're going to lower it to a B flat. And then we need our C to top it off. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is our blues scale. And the reason why we wrote that out is because if you remember up top in the rules, it says the treble clef will be your melody and you will use notes of the blues scale. So you're going to use only these notes in your treble clef for your composition. That's if you were using this key, but this is a practice one. So, and next we have to figure out the chords. So up top it says to use a 1, a 4, and a 5 chords. So we're going to figure out the 1, 4, and 5 down here. Well, the 1 chord starts on 1. This should not be new things. So that's C, E, G. The 4 chord, F, A, C. I'm going fast because this should be already known. Okay, so Now, if I'm just going to kind of box this in for a second here. That is what we're going to use for when we compose in flat. So this is, again, a practice composition. Let's go to flat and see what that looks like. Now we're in flat, and you're going to find this file in your daily work on Google Classroom. But once you're in it, you'll be here, and now you get to work. Now I'm just going to continue my practice one, right? So if you recall, here was the list of like notes that I generated using the prep worksheet, and we go through the rules on that prep worksheet to input the notes. So the composition had to be 12 measures long. Well, I've already created that for you. So I kind of gave you the first rule right off the top because there's 12 bars already in this composition. And I also gave you the piano as the instrument. So that's the first two rules. Boom, done. You're welcome. The bass clef will contain chords, and you can use any combination of the 1, 4, and 5 chords. And then at one point it also says you must begin and end with the 1 chord. Okay, so here was the notes that we generated, and on that you'll see that we have those chords. So I'm going to put those chords in right now, and I have to begin with the 1 and end with the 1, so I'm going to write those in first. And also the chords can only be half or whole notes. So I'm going to go back, select that, and make that half notes. So I'm going to use 2 of the same chord. Slide the G up top there, go back. All right, so my first bar is the 1, and let's go right to the end and put the 1 down here. This time we'll make it a whole note. Great. So I fulfilled a few rules here, and now I can use any combination of 1, 4, and 5 later on here. So just because I'm especially fond of the 1 chord today, I'm going to write another one here. Oops, slide that down. All right, select that. I'm going to make that a whole note. And here, let's go with the 4 chords. So I've already generated those chords. Make those half. Do 2 bars of that, I guess. There would be ways to copy that since I've already done that. Great, so I got the 1 here, 1 chord, the 4. Let's go with a 5 here. If you make mistakes, it's always nice because you can just select and delete. Make that a whole note. Let's do 2 measures of 5. Go with a 4 here. Make these half notes. I wonder, because now I'm in the note mode up here, I'm just going to go and say copy, move over to there and say paste. No, there's got to be a way to do it. Great, and now I will put a 1 chord because we haven't been there for a while. And then how about a 5 chord here? How about a 1 and then 4 and then a 1 at the end? So 1, chord here. Make that a half, and we're gonna leave 2 rests there because just make this interesting. So I followed the rules. We started with the 1 chord, ended with the 1 chord. I only used whole notes and half notes down here. I didn't use quarter values and so on. And I used any order I wanted to in the middle, as long as I began and ended on the same. So far, so good. All right, so one of the rules also said you must label your chords. So here's how you do it. To label the chords, you're going to select your first one here, and you only have to label them once you change each chord. So like in bar 3 and 4, it's always the same chord, so we're not going to label each one. So I'm going to go to text, and if I scroll over, you'll see that there's like this. I don't want the guitar chord up there. I want the classic chord down here. So I'm going to click this, and you'll notice right here it opens up a text box. So I'm going to type in my chord. So capital I for 1 chord, and then it gives me different ones here. I'm just going to use the 1. And then when it changes, I go there, 1, 4 for the 4 chord, 5 chord, oops, hit enter, 4, enter, 1, 5, 1, oops, I made a mistake there, so I'm going to go back, 4, and 1. Great. So now they're all labeled. Awesome. Okay, so that's great. Now I just need a treble melody. So again, just to remind you, we have our notes that we generated at the beginning, and we're going to use those blues scale notes as our melody. Now, this might not sound amazing right now. We're just kind of delving into this, and hopefully we'll get sounding better eventually. Okay, so and I'm going to use, you can use any rhythm values. You can use 128th notes if you really want to, but I don't suggest that. They're way too fast and won't sound great. And I'm just going to use the blues scale here. So we need an E, and all of our E's in the blues scale are flat for this key. The B's were flat as well, so I'm going to put that flat. Now notice that this one, I don't need to put a flat on, because whenever you put a flat here in this bar, all the other B's are flat unless you say it not to be until the next bar. So now I have to put another flat there. Let's make C, let's make that C a half note and give a rest. So I'm going to go back up here and hit play for a second. Okay, so far, okay. Let's go with some eighth notes down here. So we're gonna use that as E flat. It had to be flat there, and then I'm gonna make it an eighth note. Let's make it go. This is a bluesy thing to happen, to go back and forth between two notes like that. So, and let's see. Put a 5 note there. All right, so I'm gonna go select that first note again, hit play. All right, right, so if you know anything about the blues, it's already kind of starting to sound a little bit like the blues. It's not amazing blues because it's fairly straight rhythm and so on, but at least it's getting started. So what I would do is I would complete my melody like I was doing there earlier, and then there's going to be a turn in button on top, and you're going to turn it in. But again, make sure you've checked off all the rules, okay? And you can't use my C major. Use any other key. Thanks for listening.